All right, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the Growth Lab. This is the podcast dedicated to beauty and vitality. We're sitting down today with Dr. Rachael Degurse, the visionary behind Pearl Skin Body, a medical practice in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's an amazing practice that features many, many unique services. Absolutely incredible. Let's find out more. This episode is brought to you by MedSpa Accelerator. We help med spas and weight loss clinics solve the bottleneck of inconsistent qualified patient leads to achieve a predictable, available monthly revenue without staff burnout. We're thrilled to have Rachel joining us today to discuss the future of GLP-1s and aesthetics. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to share your story, Rachel. I like to frame these conversations simply into past, present, and future. I want to start with your origin story and how you got into this demanding and rewarding industry. First, we'll start with your present reality, what's working, what's causing friction, and the systems that's keeping your doors open. We'll finally look at your future outlook and what's going on with your practice in the next 3 to 5 years and building strategic moves that you're planning. That way, we'll cover the full spectrum of your clinic and the new one that you're opening. Does that sound like a good roadmap?
That sounds great, Jason. Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Oh, absolutely. Great. First question is you're a medical doctor by trade, and you have a very impressive CV. Tell me about the Colorado Springs practice.
Yes, that's correct. I'm a family medicine physician by training. I've been in practice for about 15 years, mostly in primary care, and then I combined my med spa into primary care about 4 years ago, and then I left my primary care practice about a year ago. So I'm
Okay.
currently doing my med spa full time. It's a very small med spa. I'm the only clinician there. I do 100% of the services and the work. Um,
Wow.
yes. So
That's
just
got to be
me.
very demanding.
Yes, it's a little bit of a challenge, but it took me a few years to really grow and build my patient base. So it worked out combining that with also working my day job at the time. Two staff members who were admin. So I have a front desk person who helps with my social media and marketing. And then I do have a medical assistant who assists me during some of my procedures, but also for non-procedural patient visits like picking up medications and things like that. So it's very busy, but it's also been very rewarding.
Okay, awesome. That's fantastic. I wanted to know a little bit more about the unique model of physician only care. Why is that?
Well, in Colorado Springs, there's quite a few med spas, as in many cities around the country. So
Hmm.
one of my value propositions is that 100% of the services are going to be done by myself. So you don't ever have to worry about maybe unqualified practitioner performing certain procedures.
Hmm.
Because in Colorado, it is a little bit of a gray area on who is allowed to perform certain types of procedures. Pretty much anybody can do it. So that's one of the ways that we've tried to distinguish ourselves from competition. It also helps with just managing my payroll because I don't have to pay somebody to perform these procedures. I'm just doing
Yeah.
them myself. So that was kind of a way for us to manage our overhead when we first got started.
Okay. Interesting. That's great. I want to touch base on another one of the services that you don't really advertise on, but the GLP-1 market has obviously exploded. How do you plan to navigate the rapid changes of competition while maintaining a high standard of care and profitability?
Yeah, so that's interesting because it is a very demanding service offering, which is why I am not currently advertising for it. For one thing, the way that we do it here is I sit down with every single one of the patients who's interested in, and I have a consultation with them to make sure that they're comfortable with the medication, that they're appropriate candidate for the medication, and so that they have a full understanding of the risks and benefits of the medication. And then I manage the dosing. So it's not a situation where somebody takes home a vial and then they, are self-administering it and adjusting the
Yeah.
dose themselves. So
Yeah.
I adjust the dose based on body composition analysis that we do in the office. So it's really customized to the person and what their weight loss is looking like. And then I also draw up all of the medication so that people don't have to dose it themselves at home. I do have some people who come in weekly and get shots in the office. So it's just technically cumbersome. So that's why I'm not currently advertising for it because I have kind of the threshold of how many patients that I feel comfortable managing that way.
Of course. Yeah, there's only one of you, right?
Yes, exactly. But, it is a high in demand service, so I still do accept referrals from people who are currently in that program. So if they refer a friend, then I still accept them.
Okay,
But
great.
not advertising for any outside new clients because it's a lot of work on my end.
Yeah, of course. You're only one person. You gotta have time for yourself too, right?
Yeah,
Um, Now I know previously on another call that we had that you mentioned the cancellation policy of putting a card on file and then the customer gets charged a fee if they don't give you 24 hours notice. Has that improved patient accountability?
definitely. So it definitely has decreased our no-show rate.
Hmm.
'Cause initially when we opened, we had quite a high no-show rate. So that's helped a lot. But also a lot of these procedures that we do, they're not just a one and done. They require follow-ups, they require, a plan to make sure that people reach their goals. And so that kind of to make sure that people are serious about their treatments and that they want to follow through. And we do have pretty flexible policy when in regards to weather and illness and things like that, as long as people let us know. But if somebody just doesn't show up and doesn't let us know, then yeah, they get a charge for that.
Okay. Taking a look at your current patient acquisition process, what is the first point of friction or strain on your team that you feel every day?
So, I think that probably the biggest source of friction is, I only have one front desk person. So sometimes we get a lot of marketing calls, and those always seem to come in at the same time that actual patient calls come in. So making sure that we're following up in a timely way and, making sure that people are getting contacted quickly as far as those initial outreach calls. We do have some online forms that people can fill out and just making sure that those get responded to timely. That's probably our biggest source of friction. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I was going to ask you, how do you ensure that every lead from the initial inquiry, from the booked consult is followed up consistently? And what percentage of leads do you feel are slipping through the cracks?
Yeah, so that consistency is definitely somewhere that we're still like working on. So we've used upgraded some of our software to help with notification of those missed calls, and so that people will actually get a response to those initial missed call. And then it's nice because it's cloud based. A lot of things are these days, and there's an app to it so that we can respond to it even when we're not in the office
Hmm.
because we're closed on Mondays and people love to call on Mondays, making sure
Oh,
that
yeah.
those are still getting followed up on even on days that we're closed. That's one of the things that with my team, we've been working on that consistency.
Okay. And you're opening up a new practice in January, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm getting back into primary care, going back to my roots a little bit. So, opening a direct primary care office, so membership based primary care. That's going to be really in depth, dedicated visits with my patients. So, longer appointment times, making sure that people have either same day or next day access to me, really relationship building like primary care. And my goal is to combine my two practices into one in the near future. That's probably about a year or so out from being able to do that, but that is the ultimate goal.
Okay. And do you plan to split yourself in two between those two until you form both clinics into one?
Kind of. I am going to be going in between the two offices. I do have another physician, former colleague of mine, who will be joining me in that primary care office in the next few months so that I can
Okay,
have
that'll
5 days.
help.
Yeah, five
Yeah.
days a week coverage there. For now, it's still going to be me just in the med spa.
Now, what do you think your biggest challenge is gonna be for you with that new practice? I think it's gonna for me, I think it's gonna be time, but what do you think?
Time is definitely gonna be probably the biggest thing, especially, I mean, part of the goal of a membership-based model is that you're seen, like, in a very timely manner, and so if I'm not physically there, just making sure I find a way to make sure people are still getting taken care of and,
Yeah.
timely and that they're being heard and, receiving like the value for their membership. So that's going to be the most critical thing, which is helpful that I'm having another person join me to make it that possible.
Of course, absolutely, and that's great that you have a PA that's that another MD. It's another MD, right? Okay,
Yes,
cool. Just
that's
wanted
correct.
to make sure you're still staying true to your roots.
Yep.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Now, if you could eliminate one time sink or like a repetitive task that distracts your most highly paid staff, like nurses or PAs or yourself, even from delivering patient care, what do you think that would be?
So, with our weight loss program, currently we have set it up where people, they prepay for their medication before they come and pick it up before I order it from the pharmacy. So the callbacks for those collecting payment from people is definitely the biggest time sink. I wish I could figure out a way to get around that. Maybe just like change our policy so that people realize like we're going to be billing your card on this day or something like that.
That sounds
But
like a no-brainer right there. Absolutely.
yeah. But
Okay.
I also like transparency, so I like people to be aware when they're being charged, so I just gotta find a good balance for that, or like I said,
Yeah,
maybe update our policy so that people are aware of it, because that's definitely a big time issue for us.
for sure. And time seems to be your most valuable resource for you, at least.
Totally.
And what systems do you have in place to turn like a a first time consult brand new patient into a long term high value patient who returns for multiple treatments throughout the year? What I'm specifically asking is like not necessarily a GLP-1 patient, but someone who's coming to you for maybe other treatments, like some of the all those all that expensive equipment that you have there, right?
Yes.
Maybe they're exploring all your aesthetic services. How do you ensure that long-term value for that patient?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do during our initial consult is that I have a cosmetic interest questionnaire that I have people fill out. So it really gives a whole variety of potential issues that people might come and talk to me about so that they maybe start thinking about some of those things if they didn't realize that I offered a service for it, or if it was even something that could be treated, that at least gets them thinking about, is this something that I might want to treat in the future. So they fill out that. And then on the back of that form, I actually create a treatment plan for them to address all of their concerns. And then it lists all of our services on the back so that they'll at least be aware of everything that's available. So that's one of the things that I do. Yeah. Another thing is that, like, as soon as I see somebody, of course, we're always scheduling follow ups like right after their first visit or like right after
Okay.
the, so you don't let somebody leave without scheduling their follow up.
Bam fam. Yeah, that's the whole bam fam. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, once again, these are not like one and done, like they require maintenance or for follow-up treatments. And then for like my big procedures, when I have them come in for their after photos, I usually will give them a free other service at that time. Usually like a lower out of pocket cost service for me. Right now it's my facials. So they come in if they do after photos for one of my bigger procedures like Morpheus or something like that, then I give them a free facial at the time so that they can experience that service. And then it gives me an
Yeah.
opportunity to talk about like other things that we offer to help maintain their results. So that's another thing that I've found is a strategy for me to like get them exposed to other types of things.
Let's talk about tire kickers. When you got a consult that's booked, how do you ensure that the patient is fully qualified and ready to show up and going to be there for the appointment rather than just being a tire kicker that's taking up valuable calendar space?
Yeah. So I always collect a deposit when people get on my calendar.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that cancellation policy we were referencing earlier, right?
That's part of it, yeah, so but I'll actually collect a 10% deposit for whatever service they're gonna do. So if it's a $3,000 service, we collect $300 just to get on the schedule, and then I collect the balance when I see them for their first visit.
That's
But
smart.
once again, making sure they have some skin in the game, like, and they're committed to it.
Was just gonna say that. That's so great. I
Yeah.
love that. It's fantastic. How do you approach training and retention for your aesthetic providers, like those nurses and maybe the new provider that's coming on board, especially when it comes to balancing their critical experience with the need for sales and conversation skills?
Well, fortunately, right now, that's 100% me. So there's no there's no issues with retention there.
Okay.
And I do, you know, I decide what kind of new service I want to offer. So then I go and get the training before I offer that. And then usually I'll offer that to some of my like VIP guests and like offer an intro rate for them so they can get exposed to their new service. That's kind of one of the things that I do to like get my personal experience up for anything that's new. And then I did some like business coaching to learn how to sell, because as a physician you do not learn how to sell things. You
Mhm.
kind of tend to give things away for free if you can. So that was a hard habit
Okay.
that I have to get out of. So I did some business coaching to learn how to do sales. And the best advice that I ever heard when selling is when you give somebody, because I, once again, I do all the pricing and sales myself.
Mhm.
So when I give somebody a treatment plan and I say it's going to cost, I don't know, X amount of dollars, just pause. Don't respond. Don't say anything else after that. You just pause and let the person have some time to process that, because you have no idea how they're going to react. If they seem to like, if they say, "Okay, maybe that's more than I was wanting to spend," then you can negotiate from there. But you don't wanna lead with a negotiation. You wanna just let them process, because sometimes they just say, "Okay, no big deal. Like, that's how much it costs, and let's get booked." So, just give them some opportunity to process. So
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's a really great answer. I want to cover some future outlook for you. Now, on a previous call, you mentioned to me that the goal of the new practice is going to be $1 million in revenue to cover high device payments and overhead costs, right?
mm,
If you look
yep.
at the business today, what is the single heaviest anchor that's dragging that process, that progress down? What is one broken system that, if fixed, would solve half of the other problems on this list?
Oh boy, broken system. I feel like after 4 years, I've actually gotten pretty good at like figuring out my systems, except, probably that collecting payment on medication thing that I'm really kind of making my staff do and calling those things. So I would
Yeah, mentioned
love
that
to
pain point earlier.
I'd love to streamline that. One thing that I wish that I had thought more about when I opened up my med spa was the purchases of my devices and the trajectory that I wanted to take with them, because I do have a few devices that have some redundancy to them, which, when you're talking about a six-figure device, it can add up if it's not bringing in if
Yeah.
it's not bringing in any new revenue. And this is a little bit of a hindsight thing, so I wish that I would have just taken the time to like plan out what I was going to buy and what I was next going to purchase, and maybe I would have made some like different decisions so I wouldn't have the overlap that I do with a couple of my devices right now. So that would be some advice for people who are new wanting to get started. I can't really change that at the moment, but that's something I wish I would have done differently.
Okay, interesting. So going back to what your pain point before is the collecting on some of those previous in arrears accounts. It's not a people problem, is it? It's a system process problem.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Could you walk me through the current process for that system?
Yeah, so the current process is if somebody has an appointment to come in and pick up medication or have a visit to pick up medication for the upcoming week, then my staff will look to see if they've paid for that medication. If they haven't, then they'll contact them to make sure that it's okay to collect payment. Sometimes people will update their payment information at that time. And
Mhm.
then once payment is collected, I'll purchase the medication at the end of the week for the upcoming week so I can get it in time for all the people showing up for their visits the following week. 'Cause sometimes that can create like multiple phone calls or
Yeah,
multiple
I
contacts
can
with.
tell. Yeah, so it looks like a lack of automated follow-up. and a lack of automated payment methods to be collected, there's seems to be a little bit like too many touch points, just from my perspective, right, on
Mhm.
that. Okay, well, that is a fantastic breakdown, Rachel, and thank you for being so candid about the operational reality. We're on this call. We've covered a lot of ground, from your origin story to the future of your new practice, and I know that our audience is going to get immense value from this. And with that, we're going to wrap up the recorded portion of the Growth Lab.